So I basically work for a company called Cornerstone, and I work in their thought leadership and advisory services team, which basically means I get paid to do lots of research and lots of thinking, and then I'll get paid to share some of my thoughts. So hopefully what I'll be sharing with you today will, if nothing else, I promise you, it will be memorable. Maybe for the wrong reasons. But just a quick introduction to Cornerstone. For those that they are a global HCM vendor, started in the US 18 years ago, been in Europe 10 years, head office in London. And if there's just one thing I want you to remember, because that's my goal with the company, just remember we have an ATS for sale. Anyway, enough about Cornerstone. So I'm going to start today on a bit of a somber note. This is not about recruiters being bad at the job. This is not necessarily about all the recruiters being replaced by robots. This is about workforce productivity has dropped consistently over the last 20 years and is predicted to continue to drop over the next 20 years. And that's just not sustainable from an economic point of view, from a job creation point of view. So something has to change. We're now entering something that's being called the fourth industrial revolution. And the fourth industrial revolution is all about automation, machines that are connected to each other, processes that are run by machines, and in some cases with very few humans involved. Now, somebody well known for building the machine that builds the machine is Elon Musk. And as you're probably aware, they've had problems with production for the Tesla 3, Model 3. So he's brought in additional humans to actually fix the production problems. And he's admitted that maybe humans are underrated. Maybe the machine's not quite as good as we hoped it would be. And then Google are hiring an additional 10,000 people to moderate content, to check content, to make sure it's not malicious, it's not violent, it's not extremist. Facebook have 10,000 people in their security division. They're hiring another 10,000 people into their security division. So they'll have 20,000 people checking all this content. So everything you share today, you're creating jobs. We are creating the problem by adding more data, adding more content. But it doesn't mean that the machine is necessarily losing, because Google, the amount of content that's been moderated out by the machine in the last year is the equivalent of 180,000 people working 40 hours a week. That's what the machine has done. And it didn't take 180,000 machines. So Google, even if they wanted to hire 180,000 people to process all that crap, they couldn't find them anyway. So let's not kid ourselves that the machine has actually lost the battle. When Yahoo first started as a search engine, they had human moderators. They would tag and categorize the content and provide the right search results for us. But Google came along and automated it. And that was kind of the end of the search engine for Yahoo. And if you think about Facebook, with their 2 billion users right now, that means of all of their 20,000 moderators, each moderator has 100,000 accounts, profiles, they have to moderate. And if each one of those puts 10 posts, comments, likes, whatever, a day on Facebook, that's now 1 million things they've got to look at. So today, I've got to moderate 1 million things on Facebook. Tomorrow, I've got another 1 million. By the end of the week, I've got 7 million things I'm supposed to have moderated, and guess what? I can't even process 100 candidates. How do I process 1 million posts on Facebook? So let's not kid ourselves that the machine is losing and we humans are winning, because denial is not a good thing. You know, we've heard of companies from Kodak to Toys R Us who have been in denial for change. They couldn't change, or maybe they wouldn't change, but either way, they don't exist. So I'm going to tell you a little story about denial and how denying something created an element of pain that made me rethink a few things. Now, when you see this slide come up, it's a warning. Some of the pictures I'm going to show you are quite graphic from an injury point of view. So you may feel a little bit queasy. Keep apart from each other. We don't have sick bags down here. Don't be sick on the person you sat next to, particularly if you don't know them. So you've been warned. Okay? I've warned you that some of these pictures will be a little bit graphic. But it'll be fine. It will make sense. So January this year, I was on the start line of something called the Spine Race, which actually starts a mere 30 miles from here in Edale. And it's an ultramarathon. And basically the whole race goes from Edale to Kirkjetsholm, but I was just doing what we call the baby spine, which is just 110 miles from Edale to a place called Hardroar. And it's in January, so it was a little bit boggy. And a little stream crossing like this in the summer, which you can just tiptoe across, turns into a bit more of a raging torrent. And not the best picture, but it illustrates that was the best picture I could get at the time. Now, some people, you'd kind of go across with your trekking poles, and one poor lady who wasn't particularly tall went through the trekking pole and went headfirst into the river and got washed down the river. But she did live. But it was pretty brutal. Anyway, here's a little picture of me on the trail. So, in theory, I've done parts of this race before. I knew where I was going. I was competent and qualified. So everything should be fine. But one thing about ultramarathons, I mean, this is a non-stop race. You don't have time to sleep. You've got a cut-off period of 60 hours. So if you say it quick, 60 hours doesn't sound very long. You don't sleep. You might get a couple of hours. But the thing is with ultramarathons, it's not will it hurt, will there be some pain. You'd be in denial to think it won't hurt me. There's pain coming. The pain will be there. But the question is how much, how often. But on the good note, the first day, even though it was January, was actually dry. So I was able to kind of get going, kind of get along the trail, and basically get to a point where I'd done about 25 miles. And I could feel a hot spot on this heel here. Now, I'm sure you've all had hot spots, new pair of shoes. Maybe you're out clubbing somewhere. Do I take my shoes off? Do I leave them somewhere else? Will I be okay? Yeah, I'll be fine. It's just a hot spot. It's a blister. And you get home and maybe it's a little bit of a blister, but it's nothing major. So I could feel this hot spot, and there's a few little things we remember as ultra runners. The first one, it's just pain. And pain is actually just weakness leaving the body, so suck it up, get on with it. Really, I should have stopped and I should have taped it, but I thought, I'm only 20 miles, 25 miles to the checkpoint. It's still daylight. I'll get to the checkpoint. I'll be fine. So I got to the checkpoint, took the sock off. Blister had actually popped. I didn't expect that. But the skin was still there. The skin was still on top. A little bit of tape on top of it. Absolutely fine. It was getting dark now, so I taped up my foot, my heel, absolutely fine. Won't be a problem. The medic said, it might get infected, but I said, look, I've done plenty of these races. I'll be fine. Nothing, there won't be any problems. So off I went in the dark. And I got to the next checkpoint. It's not really a checkpoint. It's just an area, Malham Cove. And you get 30 minutes inside. Medic's there again. Took the blaster off. And they put something called Compede on the heel. Ripped all the skin off. Plenty of yellow goo and all sorts of things. And a bit of blood. And I thought, But I remembered, a guy called Dave Goggins. He's a little bit more extreme than me. He just thinks suffering is just part of life. I'd only got 30 miles to go. It was dark again. I'd be fine. So they'd ripped the skin off. They taped it up. They said, it will get infected. And basically, I headed off into the night. And that's basically all I saw now for the next 30 miles. It absolutely hammered it down with rain. There's some pretty big hills to get over. One of them was diverted because it's too dangerous to go up, but they put the diversion in just after I'd gone up there, which was a bit of a downer. But anyway, the bottom line is, I got to the end of the race. Okay, I got to the end of the race, which meant I was in a position where I could inspect my heel. So this is the point where you might want to do the kind of the horror story thing, put your hands in front of your face and peek through the gaps. So you have been warned. So anyway, I got a shower, and I went to the medics. They had a quick look at my heel. And obviously, the skin had gone from the heel. But actually, a little bit of swelling, but I didn't think that was too bad, to be fair. It was painful, but it wasn't too bad. So they taped me up. I went off to get a bit of sleep, so I'd finished the race now, came back the next morning and had a look at it then. And it had got a little bit worse. Little bit of necrosis on the top there, dead skin. So they said, look, we need to give you some antibiotics, we need to take you up again. By the time I got home, it had got worse again. Anyway, we'll go with the kit. That's not my cat, by the way. But the point being is, even though I knew what I knew, and even though it was painful, I was in denial. I thought, I'll be okay. So to me, machine learning, artificial intelligence, it's a bit like a hotspot at the moment. It's causing a little bit of pain, but we're all in denial. We all think it's going to kind of move away. And the problem is, we live in a bit of a bubble as recruiters. We live in our own little world, and we go to recruitment events, and we go to learn about stuff, and we think, yeah, what's going to be the next thing in recruitment? But what we really need to be doing, we really need to be really looking at what's happening in the workplace. What are the people that serve the customers doing in the workplace? Because as a middleman, as a recruiter, you're serving a department that's serving the people, the customers. So you need to be looking at that. Now the thing is, there's a lot of inefficiencies in the world. But one thing we are not inefficient at is population growth. We seem to be able to grow the population, no problem. By 2050, we will grow from about 7.6 billion to 9.8 billion. Let's call it 10 billion. Okay? The problem is, 45% of the agricultural land in the world is used for growing crops to feed animals. 22% of the fish are used to create fish oil to feed animals. And it takes 7 kilos of animal feed to create 1 kilo of meat or protein. So, massive inefficiencies. And the thing is, by the time we get to 2050, which most of us will, well, I probably won't be, but most of you guys will probably be alive in 2050, we've run out of space to create the food that we need to feed the people. So we have to think differently. Now, I'm not quite sure how you pronounce this company. I'm going to pronounce it insect, because it kind of looks like insect. Now, these people think that the answer, one of the answers in this inefficient process of creating protein is worms. So they have a highly efficient warehouse production facility producing worms. And they basically produce these worms, they extract all the oil from their bodies to create oil, and then all the leftovers are creates a protein powder. Now the good thing is it's not for human consumption, it's for animal consumption. But obviously they are seeing this as one way of creating protein more efficiently. I'm not a vegetarian or vegan, by the way, so I'm not saying let's not eat meat. I breed my own animals, so I kind of can't really not eat them. But the point being is we have inefficiencies in the process. But insects have a highly automated factory, so the knock-on effect to them is they will have fewer, if any, hourly paid manual workers in their workforce and more highly skilled technical people. So that's just one example. I'm sure you've all heard of Amazon Web Services. Believe it or not, they call that the snowmobile. And that snowmobile will drive to somewhere like Netflix, who may have 100 petabytes of data, which is 5 million films with video and high res and sound, etc. And rather than upload those films over the internet, they'll literally suck the data into the back of a truck, drive the truck back down to Amazon's offices or warehouse or web servers and upload it. Because that's the most efficient way to do it. Amazon have proved that is more efficient than doing it any other way. It's a jacket. Now those sleeves on that jacket have to be sewn on using a particular manufacturer's thread. And that manufacturer is a big organisation, and they're worried about being moved out of the market, disrupted by digital printing. That jacket soon, or already now, can be printed in inverted commas by a machine and doesn't need to have separate sleeves. It just sews the sleeves straight in using the same fabric. So a business that makes thread are concerned about 3D printing. So again, the impact in the workplace. That's the workplace, but let's not think about what's happening in our own lives. Anybody got Google Assistant on their phone? Even if you've got an iPhone, you can have Google Assistant. Google Assistant is now, and hopefully this will work, I'm blaming the AV people if it doesn't, if it works on my laptop. This is what Google Assistant will now make a phone call for you, and obviously I wouldn't use this use case, book an appointment at the hairdressers for you. Have a listen to this. This is real.
How can I help you?
Hi, I'm calling to book a women's haircut for a client. I'm looking for something on May 3rd.
Sure, give me 1 second. Sure, what time are you looking for around?
At 12 p.m.
We do not have a 12 p.m. available. The closest we have to that is a 1:15.
Do you have anything between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m.?
Depending on what service she would like. What service is she looking for?
Just a women's haircut for now.
Okay, we have a 10 o'clock.
10 a.m. is fine.
Okay, what's her first name?
The first name is Lisa.
Okay, perfect. So I will see Lisa at 10 o'clock on May 3rd.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Great. Have a great day. Bye.
Or you want to book a restaurant. Book a table at a restaurant. A little bit more complicated.
See how may I help you?
Hi, I'd like to reserve a table for Wednesday the 7th.
For 7 people?
It's for 4 people.
4 people? When? Today?
Next Wednesday at 6 p.m.
Oh, actually we reserve for like upper 5 people. For 4 people you can come.
How long is the wait usually to be seated?
For when, tomorrow or weekday or?
For next Wednesday, the 7th.
Oh no, it's not too busy. You can come for 4 people, okay?
Oh, I gotcha. Thanks.
Yep. Bye-bye.
That's real. So think about that. Think about how Google is coming into our life and how basically technology is becoming more and more part of us. And we start to become controlled by the machine. Now, I don't know if anybody's heard of this company here, but Amazon bought a robotics company. And basically, Amazon Robotics totally automates their, well not totally, highly automates their warehouses. They have 150,000 people working in their warehouses globally. They have 100,000 robots working alongside those people. Now, obviously, Amazon Web Services, anybody can buy access to that. Don't think for 1 second Amazon will only sell Amazon Robotics for their own warehouses. They will highly automate the process, and they will, at the moment, say it's okay, people are working with the robots because the robots need some help. The robots are arguably, let's say, like toddlers. But the thing is, they will eventually replace the people because they won't be needed. And there's plenty of stories out there, not plenty, a few stories out there about people who work for Amazon and they're kind of micro-performance managed. They get scanners and it says, you've only done 100 orders picked this hour, you are 20% behind target. People don't have time to take rest breaks. They're scared of wasting time. Idle time is a massive problem within the logistics industry. There's inefficiency in the workplace, inefficiency in the supply chain. Amazon want to remove that inefficiency out of the supply chain, and they'll be offering that kind of service to other people. So the entire logistics sector will be looking at how they can automate more and more and more. And it's even coming into your own lives. So with all that background information, what does that mean to recruitment? Well, I would predict that 80% of the recruitment process can and will be fully automated with no human intervention. Because the thing is, I hear stories of recruiters wanting to download CVs, print them out, and then scan read them because their ATS hasn't been designed to handle that kind of volume. But when I was a recruiter, a long time ago, 30 years ago, we were quicker because we only had 10 applications. They came in as paper, the paper was already printed, and we could scan them. Yes, no, maybe, yes, no, maybe. The problem is, when we automated that process, and I built one of the first applicant tracking systems in the UK, so you can blame me, we'd got it wrong. We didn't kind of get it wrong, but we didn't get it right because the process we automated was low volume. We didn't have thousands of people. You know, the internet, when we first started using it for recruitment, it was only for geeks. It would never take off. Job boards would never replace print, and nobody would ever apply for a job on the mobile phone. And they were all facts that got been proven wrong. I've had all these conversations. Mobile never happened. Social media, never relevant for recruitment. So the ATS now is just not fit for the job, not because it's a bad ATS, but because the process has changed. And we've got so much data that actually, as recruiters, we can't handle the data. And the thing is, we need to automate more and more of the process. And so my view is that right now, you could do this. You could literally, from a vacancy being signed off by the line manager, that vacancy could go into, let's say, the ATS. You would know your job template. The job template would state what screening questions, which channels to post it to. It could be posted automatically to the different channels by a job posting tool. Programmatic advertising could make sure that it gets the latest up-to-date information on those channels, make sure it advertises at the right level. The candidate applies, sees that job, applies for it. They come straight through to a chatbot. They can have a conversation with the chatbot. You've just seen what Google Assistant can do. As part of that process, they're applying for a job. They get through those screening questions. They get invited to a video interview. They take a video interview, facial recognition, voice recognition, filters that candidate. The line manager gets 5 candidates to interview, or maybe they're even booked in for an interview. And the first human intervention is at shortlist or interview stage. You could do that now. But the thing is, most of you will think, that's not right. That's too impersonal. So I did a bit of a test last week in preparation for that argument. I applied for 5 jobs, as me, real jobs that I was definitely qualified for and should at least get a response. Not one single response, nothing. The best I got was an email saying, we've got your application form, this is the process, this is what will happen next. That's it. And I know these companies, and I know, because I've got contacts there, that their recruiter should be talking to me, because I went through my network rather than through the system process, nothing. Now I know that we do not aspire to that level of service. None of us want our candidates to have that kind of service, but that's what we're delivering. And if that's what we're delivering, we set the bar so low for the robots, for the automation. How can we not do better than that? I judged a competition once, or not judged it, we basically had to give our ratings, and we had to give ratings against things. And I knew the other 10 judges would meticulously go through everything. I'd look at that, oh, yeah, that's a 5, or that's a 4, that's a 3. I just randomly picked numbers. Just randomly picked them. Didn't even look at the name of the business I was looking at or judging. And then I compared my results to all the official results. And I was within 10, 20% on everything. And I just picked random numbers. And my point is that if you had 20 candidates for a high volume role, as long as they get through some basic screening questions, you would get good enough in most cases. But like we say, we deny that this is possible. But some of you will actually go, yeah, maybe we can do some of this. And the thing is, to me, it's not a bad future. This is not some kind of dystopian future where Google will ring candidates for us. But they could do. You could say, Google Assistant, or hey, Google, ring this candidate. Hey, Google, do some searching for me. And Google will do that for you. You've heard what Google AI is already doing. It's coming. Into the recruitment world, it will happen. There's stuff already out there. But the point being is that this is all about making our lives easier, where we get to a point where technology does so much a coffee costs a penny, a car costs £10, a house maybe £1,000, because we can make these things so much more efficiently, so much more cost effectively. And actually, we could actually have a life back rather than be replying to emails at 10 o'clock at night, looking at how many likes we got on social media and all that kind of thing. So your mission, from a recruiter point of view, is not worrying about hiring people, but hiring the people that build. You've got to build the machine that hires the people that will build the machine that builds the machine. So taking Tesla want to build a machine that builds their car, the machine. But they've got to get the people. But for you to get the people, you've got to build your own machine to hire the people that build the machine that builds the machine. That's what you've got to be thinking about. And the thing is, actually, you want more data, not less data. Because your job as recruiters is not hiring people. You think about what you produce. What you produce primarily is new hires. You've got to think like insect. We don't actually want to be producing new hires. We want to be producing business impact. And you need to be thinking about, we need to produce the data, the market intelligence, the information that the business needs in order to know how to produce the machine, produce the product. And that might be, these people just don't exist. If we advertise for these people, we're just not going to get them in less than 6 months. We need to think differently. It might be we've got to outsource. It might be we've got to use freelancers. We need to think differently. And that's the future for me of recruitment. It's not about producing new hires. It's about having the information that actually the business can make better business decisions on. And the thing is, what potentially happens is that as recruiters, we get to the office each day and we're a bit like the people in the warehouse in Amazon. We get to our desk and Google says, now do this. And then Google says, do that. And then machine says, do this. And we become automatons. Okay? We are controlled by the machine. People that work in offices, you are going to be controlled by machines. Who actually thinks that they would mindlessly just follow a machine in the office? Who actually thinks that's going to happen? Anybody? Okay. Anybody drive a car? Yeah? Anybody gone, at the next exit the junction. At the roundabout, take the third exit and continue for 1 mile. Anybody do that? Anybody listen to their sat-nav while they're thinking about something else? Hopefully not texting. You're already following what the machine tells you. Why wouldn't that come to the office? It will. So basically, you've got to make a decision. Left or right, blue pill, red pill, what do you think the future is? Where do you think it's going? Are you going to stay in denial? Or are you actually going to do something? So what do you do? Here's what I would do if I was in your position. Okay? I would find other people who actually think this is possible. And I would work with those other people and I would run experiments. I'd run tests. Because the thing is, we don't know what's possible. I remember my first mobile phone, carrying it over my shoulder. And I had no idea what was being dreamt up. I'm old enough to remember when we first started digitizing the world. And I remember doing something called geographic information systems. We had loads of temps mapping Nottingham. And I said, what's this for? And they explained sat-nav to me. I'm thinking, that'll never happen in my lifetime. How wrong was I? So the thing is, you've got an opportunity. We've all got an opportunity to do something. So don't be scared to dream, but try and do a bit more than dream. Actually be a dreamer that actually gets stuff done. Because AI, machine learning, artificial intelligence, it's like that hotspot. You can feel it. You know it's there. If you think it's not going to change what you do, you are in denial. And trust me, I know denial can be painful. But I'm no more injuries now, so I've actually survived. So that's me. It's the only slide that broke. Coming back to operational reality, obviously a lot of what I've been talking about is maybe 10 years away. I would say not 10 years away. GDPR is nigh. I am running a webinar next week if you're interested. bit.ly/GDPR is nigh. Back to operational reality. I'll be interviewing a data expert around what do we do right now about GDPR before the robots take all our jobs. Thank you very much.